Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out Mecha Knight's Nightmare. Which sounds like an almost a dream game when you think about it. The way this was pitched to me in the email that got sent to me offering me a copy of this was Earth Defense Force crossed with Armored Core. Yes? Yes. That's all I have to say to that. Yes. This sounds perfect, I want to play this. And then you go to the store page, and it says it was inspired by dark wartime stories like Love, and I'm like, shit, I'm even more in. So I picked it up, and by picked it up, I mean I got sent a review copy, and I gave it a go. I played through half of the game's 20-mission campaign, I gave one of the raids a go, and you're seeing roughly the second half of that in this video. I played a couple more missions after I was done. And I gotta tell ya, I was disappointed, because of course I bloody was. Why is it the interesting concepts always end up having something wrong with them? And it's not the state of the PC version of the game, although there are definitely some things that make me think this game isn't ready for prime time to begin with, but yeah, we'll go over them first. Let's just go over them first, because why not? First things first, there's a ton of typos. There are so many just weird phrases and typos everywhere. There's typos in the weapon names. There's typos in the subtitles. There's typos in the objectives. There's so many of them. It was like he didn't even get someone who was even familiar with English to go through and be like, hey, is there something wrong here? I mean, it's mostly okay. I'm probably overselling it, but you won't be able to go through 1 or 2 missions worth of rewards or just general subtitles and being like, oh, they got something wrong in those subtitles there. And it's something that's really obvious to someone like me, so I don't know why it wasn't obvious here. Now look, I wouldn't be so harsh on it, but as of the time of me recording this game is 1 week from release. By the time you see this, it will have been released. So, you know, it just seems a bit weird that these things which are so glaringly obvious to me haven't been sorted out yet. Another notable thing, no controller support on this one either, which is weird, because again, not only do you have Steam input, I'm pretty sure this is made in something like Unity. It looks like Unity, but I could be wrong about that. But then you've also just got like Steam input, so it shouldn't even be a problem. Especially in a game as simple as this, the controls are really simple. You got 2 weapons that you fire with your mouse buttons, 2 weapons you fire with the Q and E buttons. So just put them on all the shoulders, job done. Then you've got some active modules that you can cycle through and activate. You've got the ability to hide the HUD, the ability to go into first person, and a boost button, which if you combine with another button, turns into a super boost. And like, that's it. That's all the really important stuff. I don't know why this doesn't have controller support. It would be so much more comfortable than trying to play this on a keyboard, because there is more than a few situations in this game where you're basically going to be wanting to be holding down all 4 fire buttons, the boost button, and a movement direction all at the same time. On a controller, that'd be easy. On this keyboard, bloody hard. Really bloody hard. If you see me doing like some weird movements while all my weapons are firing, you'll know what it is and you'll understand why. Also, this game's got no frame limiter and very little in the way of graphics options, although there doesn't seem to be that much to customize in the way of graphical effects anyway. It's just a little weird. And honestly, I think he's gone a little bit too over the top with the level of detail stuff that's going on here, or just distance fog or something like that, because this game is one of the blurriest games I've ever bloody played. Whenever you try and look off in the distance, everything just looks like a glob of mess. And I do have my glasses on. I don't think I'm getting this wrong. It kind of looks like the guy's got really bad vision up to a certain point. It's weird. You also have the ability to change the FOV of the camera, but it doesn't do anything particularly useful in terms of explaining that to you. And the audio levels are all off. You don't even have very good audio sliders. You've got a master volume, in-mission music, and main menu music. But even if you fiddle around with them, the level of the voices is unchanged. So it comes in blaringly loud over the top of everything. It's bizarre. And again, if this game wasn't 1 week from release, if this was an early access release, I wouldn't be so harsh on it, but 1 week from release with all of this to worry about seems like it hasn't been worked on very much. But anyway, let's talk about the game itself. So it's a mech shooter, as you can very clearly see via the gameplay that's going on in front of you at this point. And it is very Earth Defense Force. Like, he wasn't kidding when he said that. So you shoot all of these enemies with all your weaponry and they'll drop pickups for you. Health, ammo, energy, and new weaponry. And in between missions, you can customize things like the weapons on your shoulders and the weapons on your arms, the individual parts of your robot, some individual little extra bits that give you things like extra ammo, extra energy, speeds up the cooldown of your weaponry, you know, just general stuff off to the side like that. And then you've got your active and your passive modules. Your passive modules basically do the same thing as the equipment. And then you've got active modules, which let you do things like night vision and call in supply helicopters. And despite the fact that I was halfway through the campaign, I should say, those are the only 2 active modules I had, so I don't know what the deal is with that. You'd think I'd have more by now. You'd think there'd be more use for them, but there's not, for some reason. So, there you go. And the missions and the gameplay really are quite simple. They do try and cover it up a bit by having certain objectives and certain other things that you need to do. But a lot of the time, the missions are basically just going to boil down to go and kill everything. And to be fair, when you're trying to give off an Earth Defense Force vibe, that's absolutely fine. No argument from me on that front whatsoever. Unfortunately, it just tends to have a couple of gimmicks which really don't work out too well for it on the mission design front. And thankfully enough, 2 of them are actually displayed in this video. One of them is the fact that you have to guide some soldiers home, which wouldn't be too bad. But not only is it incredibly easy to accidentally shoot them, it's incredibly easy to run over them. If you so much as be within like 20 feet of them, at least relatively, like you don't have to get very far away from them in order to just watch them explode into a cloud of red paste and that count towards your failure of the mission. I got through it the first time, but I just gotta say, it was a massive pain in the ass to deal with, and I would have preferred it if it was a little bit more like the lower difficulties on Earth Defense Force, where you can't deal that much damage to them. But that's a minor thing. So you're going around and you're shooting the crap out of all of these, they call them Reds. They're basically aliens, big scary aliens. And they come at you in droves, and you need to shoot them down. It's really that simple. In fact, it's a little bit too simple. I'm reminded of some of the benefits to the Earth Defense Force model here, where every enemy that you would come across was not only a definitive part of sort of a table of things you could deal with, adding multiple of them into a situation made things way more interesting. So, just to give you an example of Earth Defense Force. In Earth Defense Force, you just have your regular soldier ants. They come straight up to you and they try and bite the crap out of you. But then you'd have the spiders who try and take the long way around. They try and hit you from the sides and they'd slow you down alongside with hurting you. You have the red ants, which are stronger, can move faster, and will serve as cover for the regular soldier ants and the spiders. And then you'd have things like the Hectors, the robots, that would be walking on behind, hitting from long distance, and being the massive pain in the ass they usually are. And every single different combination of these you could throw into a level would change the combat scenario significantly. And you'd have to learn to reprioritize your targets, and you'd have to learn to find your way around the more problematic things in order to be able to get closer. And the more of the enemies that it would add on to the fight, the more interesting it would get. Mecha Knights is incredibly simple. All of the enemies are incredibly single-minded. They will all go in a straight line towards their determined enemy, whether it be friendlies, whether it be you, or whether it be some other kind of target that you need to worry about. This will often come to the point where they'll often do things like hug cliff walls really damn closely in order to take the path of least resistance to a fault to an enemy. And they will go single goddamn file if they need to. They will eventually get there. It works slightly better when they're in open spaces and they can spread out into a little bit more of a horde, but even then they don't do it very much. And they kind of have to be in these massive swarms in order to be anything approaching a threat, because the absolute majority of enemy swarms and forces in this game are really simple to take care of. Get their attention, bring them towards you, hold all 4 of your fire buttons, eventually win. Of course, you'll need to break off from time to time to regenerate your health, get some ammo back, do those sorts of usual upkeep things. But that is basically it. Of course, there are times where they'll take like different paths and something like that in order to try and throw you off, and they'll be spawned in different ways, but all of the AI acts almost exactly the same. They all come straight in one big swarm, and you just stand there and continue firing. If they start firing back, just move to the right a little bit. They'll keep missing. If they start spreading out a little, it's fine. Just use your boots, get out of the way a little bit. And it makes them really uninteresting to fight, especially since they don't really seem to have any majorly... what's the word I'm looking for? They don't seem to have any major differences between all the kinds of enemies. Now, I'm halfway through the campaign, and I've seen basically the same set of things, because it's always going to turn out to be like some, just dudes that shoot at you, dudes that charge at you, dudes that charge at you, and they're basically scorpions, and they're a little bit faster, and then guys will fire missiles off from the back. It does sound like a lot of different enemy types, and like, yeah, a couple of like big dudes, but the way to defeat them is always the same. Get them in a big swarm, fire everything. That's it. That's all there really is to it. And it makes the game an absolute chore. Especially when you start factoring the weapons into it, because this game has the Earth Defense Force problem. A lot of weapons in Earth Defense Force are practically useless, right? They give you something like 700 weapons in a game, but all of those weapons, well, not all of those weapons, but something like 50% of those weapons will turn out to be functionally pointless to take along, because they've got some kind of weird condition or some kind of weird special ability that forces them to only be useful in a little bit, and you'll find yourself falling back on the just the regular average stuff. Just as an example, with the Rangers, the foot soldiers, they will always take an assault rifle and a rocket launcher if they just want to be generally useful, because you'll have one good long range and one good short range, and that will do the trick. This game has that problem in spades, because there are so many weapons in this game that are just thoroughly ineffective when trying to deal with a bunch of enemies, because there'll be ones that do like high single shot damage, but they'll only be to one kind of enemy. And a lot of the enemies in this game will die in a couple of shots from even like the weakest chain guns. So the absolute majority of the time, your best option is to take along 2 chain guns and 2 sets of dumbfire rockets. Every other set of weapons in this game is too weak to effectively use, because their ammo counts will be too low, they won't do enough damage, and they won't be able to put a reliable enough hole in a swarm to keep you alive for an even remote length of time. And so as a result, you end up resorting to 2 chain guns, 2 dumbfire sets of rockets on your back shoulders, get a big swarm together, hold both mouse buttons, hold Q and E, and just fire constantly. There's no strategy. There's no needing to prioritize. There's no really even needing to worry about ammo, because when the bigger swarms start showing up, they'll drop ammo tokens so regularly you'll barely need to break contact. Only if the swarm is big enough and constantly firing so many bloody shots that you'll eventually start taking enough damage to need to worry about healing, that you'll need to call in a supply chopper. And the supply chopper costs so little that there's no reason not to do it. It costs something like 25 bucks to call in, which is oddly enough in-game referred to as 25 supplies, but you'll get $50 or $100 pickups from enemies all the bloody time. You'll spend $50 in the middle of a mission, then come back with 1,200, so there's no danger or rhyme or reason behind it, you know? So the game just ends up being brain dead simple, to its own detriment. And it doesn't help that the level designs are... You've got city streets, you've got wide open plains, you've got some tighter-ish plains, but it always ends up defaulting to a wide open area with one big swarm of enemies coming directly at you or directly at something you're trying to protect. You just stand in between them and shoot them all the time. There is so little in the way of gameplay variety that it gets really boring really fast.
Get ready to pull out, Echo
And then you've got the variety missions, which, you know, force you to protect some people, or in the case of one in particular, forces you to stand on a boat in a tiny space with very little room to maneuver and shoot flying things as they come by. Removing the maneuverability in this game, and the funny thing is, the maneuverability in this game is fucking odd. So, you press a button and it activates your boosters, which let you move a little bit faster, in exchange for slowly draining your energy. Then when you double tap the space button, you'll do a fast dash, which will quickly drain you of energy. But unless you get swarmed by something, which is very hard to do unless you're not paying attention, admittedly I stopped paying attention after a while, all you really need to do is keep your boosters on, and just fly around a bit. They'll drop enough energy packs for it to be not that big of a problem. And I just don't understand why that system exists in the first place. The entire energy system is just a bit of a what is this for thing for me, because the thing about it is that there's no energy weapons. It's not like Earth Defense Force where you've got the Pale Wing that can, the Wing Diver I should say, sorry, that can not only fly and use that maneuverability, but also uses that to power their weapons. No, for you it's just fly around the battlefield. There might be energy weapons when you get later on in the game, but I haven't seen them and I'm halfway through, so I can't say what that's about. So that ends up feeling a tad bit pointless. And then you've got changing out your parts, which has enough stats to make Armored Core fans go, ooh, this looks interesting. But then you actually play it, and a lot of the parts you can get are really just straight upgrades. And if they're not, you just sell them off for money. And it doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't really contribute to your survivability if you're being smart about it. And again, being smart about it equals 2 chain guns, 2 sets of dumb fire rockets, just go for it. So, the customizability really doesn't come into it. They do let you take photos in different poses and change your paint job as well, but it's nowhere near as impressive as something like Gundam Breaker, so it doesn't really matter that much. You're seeing the, well, not almost the most it can do, but a fair bit of what it can do with my custom mech here, with its camo paint job and its 2 colors. There's like 3 colors you can put on it, but I couldn't even see where the 3rd color was when I tried to paint it, so who knows, maybe that's just me. And you can also upgrade your mech with extra health, extra weapons, extra ammo I should say, extra energy regeneration, move faster and all that, but it doesn't really make a noticeable difference. You might get slowly better as you go on, but I'd be lying if I said I could tell the difference as the game went on. It also doesn't help that it's kind of buggy, in the sense that, not in the good kind of janky buggy that Earth Defense Force is known for, but in the bad kind of jank. One of the most annoying things about it was that if enemies get too close to you, you'll shoot right through them most of the time. It's that kind of jank, and it's not very good. Just because it lets the enemy models get so close that the bullets spawn on the other side of the model. It'd be good if it was intentional, but it's pretty clearly not. What else is there? There is a raid mode that you can do, that you unlock as you progress through the game to get extra equipment and money. And it's basically just a survival mode, which to me isn't particularly interesting, but it's there. And there's nothing really to say about it except that I picked up 4 items, but when I called into the evacuation and left, I only got 2 items out of it, which felt like absolute bullshit. I just gotta remember if there's anything else I want to talk about before we get onto the story. If I can just get my video to show at the right time. Yeah, I already talked about the graphics and the sound. Where's the main menu? Yeah, there's no other modes or anything like that. So I guess we'll get on to talking about the story, which is sort of kind of portrayed in the same way that Earth Defense Force is, where some of the story is told to you via in-game voice acting. And the voice actor for the protagonist Ethan? My brain has been frying trying to figure out who the fuck his voice is. I have heard this exact voice before in a parody of something, and I can't for the life of me remember exactly what it was from. I don't think it was this guy specifically, this particular voice actor, but I remember this exact voice being in a parody of something that I do not remember. I also thought he sounded a lot like Keanu Reeves trying to be cool. The voice acting isn't awful, but it is a little bit grating. And they say the word fuck a bit too much. No, just genuinely a bit too much. It feels a bit over the top. This isn't, whatchamacallit. This isn't House of the Dead Overkill, guys. There are more swear words than fuck. I think they say fuck more than they do shit, damn, hell, you name any other four-letter curse word. Oh, there is cunt, but we, it's not an Australian game, they're not allowed to say that. It's not very well written, it's not very engaging, and admittedly, it's incredibly cliche. Like, Mia comes along, and you know her exact tricks within the first 5 seconds. You know that these two used to be an item. You know that they're gonna end up banging at some point, and they do, off screen. And then you've got this mission that you've already seen, or at least you're about to, yeah, you've already seen it, judging by the time code of my commentary here, where Jake immediately comes out with his family, and then just the biggest red flag starts flying above his head. It's so massive that even the aliens are surprised by it, and it's just got a few words written over the top of it. I'm going to fucking die at the end of this mission, and that's exactly what he goddamn does. But honestly, I would have cared at least a little bit if he was a useful AI ally. I remember feeling upset when it was Chopper who died in Ace Combat 5, because he was legitimately useful. He did what you told him to. He was really good at his job. Fucking what's-his-face here and Mia, they don't do shit. Friendly AI doesn't do shit in this game except stand around and get dunked on by the aliens. I've seen the AI just stand around and watch the Bradleys get annihilated by these random AI aliens. They do not do shit. They barely even go out and fire. And they're in, like, the same mechs that you're in, right? So they can move around like crazy. They can be firing constantly. But all they do is stand there and let you take care of all the shit. There's not even, like, Earth Defense Force level where they're not very useful, but at least it looks like they're putting up a fight. And you can even watch them, like, take out certain enemies if they've had enough damage dealt to them. And you always get that little bit of smug satisfaction when a Hector gets taken down by a random foot soldier. Yeah, you do that, buddy. I got him 95% of the way, but you can have that kill because I like you so much. In this game, they don't do shit. They do not do shit. So yeah, I couldn't care less. And there's also this disconnect going on. Because in the actual mission selection screen, there is an Ethan's diary sort of thing, right? Where you can see his internal monologue and thoughts in between each mission and the events that happen between each mission. And it doesn't really give you an idea of much of what's going on in the universe. The entirety of the universe that you're given is, the world is at the Second Cold War, we were running out of resources, suddenly aliens get dropped in, and now that's everyone's problem. That's the entire universe in a nutshell, basically. It's not like Earth Defense Force, where you get to hear about other conflicts that are going on as, like, audio bits going on in the background of certain missions. No, it really is just everyone is focusing on these aliens and there's nothing else to it. But the main problem is with Ethan himself, Keanu Reevesy as he is. He tries to appear like this massive badass, right? Every single time. He knows exactly what to do, exactly what to say, and exactly where he needs to be in order to be useful. So he's like, you know, ironclad protagonist, right? But then you get to the diaries and he sounds like a paranoid, just an absolute emotional wreck half the time. And the two just don't connect. It pulled me out of the story something fierce. If there was even a rough idea of him having some kind of emotional trauma over the course of this alien war, it would be 100 times more believable. But he acts so unflinchingly, stereotypically badass. during the game and during his audio scenes, his audio lines and what have you, that it just doesn't do it for me. Like, not in the slightest. And so as a result, after 3 hours-ish of Mecha Knight's Nightmare, I'm done. There's only 20 missions in the campaign, and I played 10 of them, and I don't really find much to be worth playing here. There's no extra difficulties, at least according to the page, the store page. There is, like, hunting for all the rare items, but if you want to be doing the right thing, you want to be selling everything you can get so that you can be constantly upgrading the capabilities of your mechs. So you won't be able to start building up a collection, at least reasonably, as you go. So that's really just an endgame thing. And frankly, the endgame grind for Earth Defense Force is just so much more satisfying. So there's no multiplayer. There's nothing of that. And I've already said everything else I found wrong with the game. The AI is incredibly stupid on both sides. It doesn't provide a reasonable challenge. It doesn't give me a reasonable feeling of a battlefield. The looks of the game, everything that's like 50 feet, like everything that's just a little bit away is fine, but then it turns into a blurry mess and it just doesn't look very good. It runs okay, I suppose. Could use a bit of a tune-up. It would help if there are more graphic settings than effects and ambient occlusion. But yeah, the AI is dumb as bricks and isn't very fun to fight. The upgrades aren't particularly great because it's pretty obvious what you need to do, and the weapons aren't particularly great because most of them are useless. They don't do anywhere near enough the damage you need them to do to specific hordes. So you always end up running the same weaponry, which is some dumb fire missiles and some chain guns. As a result, the gameplay is incredibly bare bones and very simple, and I could not get on with the story or the world the game is trying to build with me, and it seems to actively work against itself at points.
I don't think she's ready for this.
So yeah, I don't like Mecha Knight's Nightmare at all. Real, I mean, that's a bit harsh, but to say that I didn't really find that much to like about it. It wasn't overly buggy. You could play this all the way through and possibly have a good time with it, but I just found it to be a sliding scale of enjoyment. And I stopped when I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to get any more out of this. And I don't think anyone else will get that much out of this, at least in its current state. Although, everything that I've talked about, apparently this is a one-man effort over the course of 5 years. So unless he pushes the game back by another 2 years to tune up all the things I've been talking about, I don't know how we could possibly make this game more enjoyable than it is at the moment. But yeah, that's my opinions on Mecha Knight's Nightmare. It's been a while since I've done a 30-minute video on something. Jesus. But yeah, I had to talk about it because, I mean, like, as a one-man project over 5 years, it's almost depressing that it fails in the ways that it does, because there are a few tweaks you can make that can make this a fair bit more fun. Make all the weapons a bit more responsive. Make it so that the AI actually works for you. And as a result, maybe make it so that there's bigger hordes. You could probably get away with bigger hordes if the weapons were more effective, just on a general level. And some better pathfinding as well, that too. But to fix the problems with the story, the mission design, that would take a fair bit more effort. And I don't know how you would go about that specifically. It just goes to show one thing. The Earth Defense Force formula is not only an acquired taste, it's also incredibly hard to get right. Even the Earth Defense Force team has trouble getting it sometimes, man. But yeah, there you go. This has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.
Supply helicopter is on the way. It will reach nearest drop zone shortly. Echo 7, be advised. We are getting reports about a new mutation which explodes on deck.
Did I already mention something about situation being fucked up? Focus fire on those fuckers then. This might actually help us if we can catch them near other Reds.
Drones show small group of the exploding type moving from east. Stay cautious.
I need repairs.
Supply helicopter is on the way. It will reach nearest drop zone shortly. What the fuck is that? Shit! He managed to break through the western wall!
I will back you up. I'm taking too much damage. The mech is compromised.
There's too many of them. This is a nightmare. I need help. Keep your shit together, kid, and keep your gun spinning.
We can do this together, Cheryl. Believe me, I'm on my way.
Danger close! I repeat, danger close!
Captain, there's even more coming my way.
Stay calm, Echo 9. I'm coming back to help.
I can't deal with all of them. Calm down, rookie. There's too many. Captain, help.
Friendly Bradley's down.
get on board the ship and evacuate the area. Well done. You have saved a lot of lives today.
There better be complimentary champagne and a queen-size bed waiting for me.
A bunk is a bunk, Echo 8, but I'll see about finding some drinks for the team.
Thank you, Major. Be sure to get an extra one for the rookie. Cheryl, you did good. Not bad for your first day in the apocalypse.
Thanks, Captain. You really saved me back there. I wouldn't have made it out without you. You're...
Good to have you on the team, Cheryl. After this, I think we could all use a drink. Next round's on me.
I'll hold you to that, Captain. We still haven't had an official night out yet.